I think back to our vision and our mission and the idea, the values that we wanted the world to have, and it's showing up. It's showing up everywhere. That sense of loving kindness, of community, of how can we be there just because we're Jewish is powerful and embracing, and that's what comes from Momentum. I didn't have a very average childhood. My parents were married for about 9 years before my mom passed away. She died about a month after my 5th birthday. I hold to her lineage more than knowing her. It's more like what I create to pass on to my children. My dad did remarry to somebody that I consider my mom. She's raised me since I was 11, and we're a blended family. She also lost a spouse, and so there's 4 of us. We all sort of understand the idea of being siblings and step-siblings, but a completely blended family. But I fondly remember that during the time I was in private school, we had Friday night dinner every Friday, and then chicken soup, family time, and that's something that I instill in my own children in our house every Friday. We have our routines. They know Friday night Kiddush by rote, by memorization, because we do that every Friday. And they know every week that we give tzedakah. It's important that we recognize, no matter what our struggles are, there are people who are struggling more, and that we want to put forth what we can to others to make life better. There were all sorts of twists and turns along the way. While I did go to private school for 2 years, the majority of my life I was in public school and not in necessarily the most of Jewish towns. So I think the high school I graduated from was about 7% Jewish, and that's difficult. Knowing that you're not part of the majority for holidays, for dietary reasons, I think you do feel separate, and sometimes it makes you feel special and sometimes it doesn't. I would say one thing that stands out for me is that I had the opportunity to go to a private Jewish school for 2 years. Many things came out of that. I think my Jewish identity was really solidified there. The experience of being part of a community, singing and the spirituality, and knowing actually that I was a part of a majority in that case was very soothing for me. I love the idea that I can walk into any synagogue of any denomination and feel right at home and find comfort in the Jewish community. And those are things that I want my children to know and to feel, and they do. I heard Lori speak on High Holidays, and I couldn't even tell you which talk it was at this point because I've heard her talk so many times, and each time a little bit more goes in. But at the end of the talk, she said, and if you want to know more, you buy the Starbucks and I'll come up with the answers. As soon as High Holidays were over, I found her number and called and said, when can you meet me for Starbucks? And that was the start of at least 2 years, I think, of my commuting from Virginia to Rockville on Wednesday nights to take her class, The 48 Ways to Wisdom. And as I went through my career, I saw these lessons that I had learned from Pirkei Avot and from Torah weaving their way into the mainstream education system. So as a coach, learning to listen to the request behind a complaint. Parallels for me with listening to somebody as an entire universe. And therefore, everything that I was doing in my professional life was being based on the foundation of what I was learning in my Jewish world. And I could see how important it was to put forth those values for other people, to change the messaging of our world. My experience through Momentum, through the JWRP, my learning with Lori, and my relationship with the Utah 8, I would say sort of is what I leaned on in having to stand for what I felt was right. I'm in a really good place now. I am Momentum's demographic. I am you. I am the women who go on the trips. I meet all the criteria, check all the boxes. Judaism's important to me. I teach my children the values that I want them to have, and they're values that are based in Torah. And one of the most powerful values I've gotten from being a part of the Utah 8 is the value of chesed, of loving kindness, of doing things for other people just because it comes from a place of love. I remember after I had Eliana, my oldest daughter, I was really struggling with postpartum things. And the Utah 8, they were just there. I've never forgotten that. I've really tried and continue to pay that forward because I think it's a beautiful value, and I want my kids to have that, and I want the world to have that. And that, to me, is one of the most amazing parts, and one of the things we hoped for was connectedness, of tearing down of boundaries between denominations, whatever separated us. We hoped to build community. That's what we're doing.